The powers at Disney know that millions of fans want more of classic Star Wars characters, but ever since Solo's failure at the box office, Disney's been trying to fix their mistakes by addressing the movie's shortcomings, and they fixed it in a way that hurts the franchise. Stay tuned as we break down how Disney learned the wrong lessons from Solo's failure. Firstly, the problem with Solo was not the cast. This goes without saying, but Solo was probably the biggest failure that had the Star Wars name attached to it. Don't get us wrong, it was an okay movie and had some amazing CGI, but it didn't make the cut as a beloved Star Wars product. The movie was one of the most expensive films ever made, with a production cost of at least $275 million. At that price tag, it needed to make $500 million just to break even. And then there's the critical and fan reviews, which weren't all that great. The movie wasn't bad per se, it just wasn't necessary, you know? There was no particular interest in a Han Solo Origins project, especially after the highly controversial release of The Last Jedi. The only other stories film from the Star Wars franchise was Rogue One, which broke the $1 billion mark and had better reviews from critics. Solo had several shortcomings, including a disastrous production that led to reshooting 70% of the movie, but the cast wasn't one. Hail Caesar star Alden Ehrenreich was recast as the charming smuggler who was once portrayed by beloved grumpy guy Harrison Ford, and Ehrenreich claimed the role as his own. He was one of the highlights of the movie, and so was Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian. We loved Glover's laid-back, smooth-talking performance as the smuggler and entrepreneur. Nearly everyone loved the two actors' performances as iconic Star Wars characters, and the two were extremely believable as younger versions of Han and Lando. But despite the near-universal praise the two actors got from fans and critics, Disney was convinced that recasting iconic characters was the reason Solo didn't make money hand over fist at the box office. So Disney turned to another option. Next, we have the Rogue One solution. Using CGI to recreate a human face is horribly difficult. We're just too good at identifying when something's off about a character. In Rogue One, Disney decided to use CGI to reconstruct Peter Cushing's likeness and performance as Grand Moff Tarkin, using pre-existing and archival footage. And they did the same with Carrie Fisher. Now, remember when you were watching Carrie Fisher say the word hope and something just felt off? Her lips didn't feel like they were human, and the same ick factor resurfaced when we watched the digital recreation of Grand Moff Tarkin. The two characters were in the uncanny valley. They didn't feel human enough. And yet, Disney figured that the CGI characters were part of the reason why Rogue One made over $1 billion at the box office, and Solo barely made $400 million. Audiences and critics didn't like the blatant recreation of a person's likeness long after they'd passed away. But Disney thought otherwise. They thought it was the way to go, rather than telling original Star Wars stories like The Mandalorian. And now for Luke and the Disney Star Wars spin-offs. So, Rogue One had a deceased actor's face recreated digitally and a completely CGI Carrie Fisher in her youth. Disney was working on its own technology that allowed them to recreate faces using thousands of reference footage of actors. It was their own version of a deep fake. We got to see it in action in Season 2 of The Mandalorian when Luke Skywalker saves Din Djarin, his band of misfits, and Grogu from the Dark Troopers. We won't lie, we were jumping in our seats when we saw a cloaked person using a green lightsaber and wearing a single black glove on his right hand. We knew it was Luke, but the face reveal slapped the smiles off our faces. The CGI wasn't bad at all. The problem was that Luke didn't feel alive. There wasn't any life behind those eyes, and it felt like a soulless recreation of a warm, energetic character. Sure, he's a Jedi Master and therefore wiser, but he's still supposed to feel alive. It's safe to say Disney's first iteration of a younger digital Luke was a failure. But they tried again with the first season of the Book of Boba Fett, and this time they succeeded, but not at giving the character his soul back. Luke's CGI in Boba Fett was way ahead of The Mandalorian. They did some neat tricks to make his face appear more natural, including a single source of lighting that didn't complicate the shot too much, and the use of shadows to hide certain imperfections. But his voice was created not by a human, but by a synthesizer. The result? A robotic performance by a soulless CGI character. Why did we fall in love with Luke Skywalker in the first place? It was his relatability as a young man coming to terms with who he is, and Hamill's performance that sold it to us. We loved him because we only saw Hamill's warm eyes and brilliant performance. Luke in Boba Fett and The Mandalorian was just a husk of Hamill created using a computer and a speech synthesizer. We were happy to see him back, but felt sad that he didn't have warmth in his eyes anymore. Next, Disney is milking a franchise dry. Every studio is vying for box office bragging rights. It only makes sense to use cherished characters with pre-existing fan bases, and reuse them in movies and TV shows, right? After all, they do own the rights to characters, and they can do whatever they want with them in any project they make. But the same actors actors that made the characters iconic can't be expected to perform forever. Marvel is doing a better job at this, phasing out older actors after completing their characters' story arcs, and introducing fresh talent to continue their legacy. Star Wars needs to do better too. There's a real chance that Disney's gonna keep trying to tell stories about characters George Lucas came up with in the 70s way after we're all gone. Instead of coming up with new characters and original stories, Disney has been trying hard to milk characters like Luke Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Darth Vader, Ahsoka, Boba Fett, and more. These characters were introduced to audiences in 1977, and while most of us still get excited to see them appear in Disney Plus shows and movies, there's still the issue of dragging a franchise by its last remaining hair until it's completely bald. We get it. The characters and actors are extremely marketable, and using CGI to keep the characters alive just feels wrong, even if it's a technical marvel. But like Marvel's Moon Knight proved, you don't have to stick with the status quo to tell a compelling story or get a lot of fans to watch your product. And now for some other news, starting with the Kenobi director teases future Star Wars cameos. The first 2 episodes of the long-awaited Kenobi series dropped on Disney Plus last week, and the fandom went wild. Series director Deborah Chow teased more cameos that are coming in future episodes. In an interview with Rotten Tomatoes TV, she said that it wouldn't be a Star Wars project if it didn't have connections to other Star Wars media, and that the cameos we'll see soon make total sense in the context of the story, and aren't just there for fan service. We could be seeing Emperor Palpatine soon, since Vader might communicate with his master after Episode 2. And we might even see a Qui-Gon Jinn cameo, considering Obi-Wan called for him in his cave on Tatooine. All in all, we think the remaining episodes will offer fans far more than they're expecting, and they can't wait. Next, Andor will be unique according to lead actor. Diego Luna, who played Cassian Andor in Rogue One, spoke with Screen Rant recently and discussed why Andor will have a unique perspective on the fan-favorite character. We know Andor's fate in Rogue One, and going into the series there probably aren't going to be high enough stakes for us to care about what happens to him. But like Better Call Saul has proved, you can always subvert audience expectations, and that's what Luna is hoping for. He revealed that the series will take a look at Cassian Andor at the beginning of his journey, rather than at the middle or towards the end. The uniqueness of the show will be purely in where we find Cassian before he was an expert pilot, and who his loved ones were. The trailer for Andor shows a gritty atmosphere and tense moments, so we're sure it'll be an original take on a compelling character. We'll be waiting to find out. And finally, Star Wars Jedi Survivor won't release on PS4 and Xbox One. The 90-second trailer for the upcoming Star Wars game swept us away with gorgeous visuals and a much darker tone than Fallen Order, but PS4 and Xbox One users likely won't be able to play it. According to a press release by EA, the game is set to launch in 2023, but not on PS4 and Xbox One platforms. Right now, there's really no word on whether or not Respawn Entertainment built the game with only PC and current-gen hardware in mind, so we won't know until it's released whether they'll be porting it to consoles. And that's a wrap. Thanks for watching. As always, hit like if you liked our video and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on future episodes. We'll see you in the next one.